Well, what is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Now, today on the table in front of us, we have a new addition to the collection. This is the VDK Wasp, and I'm, well, I am beyond stoked to have this thing in the collection. I have sort of made it my mission to collect as many of the VDK knives as I can, and I had not really heard of this one until I started poking around for other VDK knives to get. This one came up in a couple of conversations, and then sort of out of nowhere, one of them came up for sale, and I jumped on it. This was a very limited run. I've talked to Vlad about it, and this is number 7. Now, I don't know exactly how many were made. We didn't get into that part of the conversation. Unfortunately, I'd love to have that information, but I don't. But I do know that this is number 7, and he has mentioned that finding one, particularly one in such good condition, is exceptionally difficult, which tells me there were not that many of these to begin with. So what do you get? Well, you get a compound ground tanto on very thin and yet exceptionally grippy titanium scales. It is running on ceramic bearings. It has basically a full-length titanium backspacer. It's a very nice, simple, and straightforward pocket clip. This is an exceptionally comfortable knife in hand. I've already reached out to him and asked if perhaps he would be interested in making more, because I think, based on the current popularity of very, very lightweight, thin knives, this thing, maybe he could change the blade a little bit, would sell like crazy right now. In short, what I'm saying is, I think this knife was simply ahead of its time. Now, I love a good compound grind. To me, they add interest. There you go. They add interest and style to the knife, and they also make them incredibly more versatile. In other words, this is a very nice, relatively thin grind here, but the blade is thicker back here where you want for push cuts. It is very slicey. This has been an absolute joy to hold and use, and there's that texturing on these titanium scales. This knife is very light. I mean, it is an ultralight sort of monster. Now, you get very comfortable handle right here with a very generous and completely useful choil up front for choking up. I have very, very much enjoyed having this, as I mentioned, and I am glad to have it in the collection. Now, this is one of those knives where I cannot tell you to run out and get one. I'd like to, but I don't think you're going to be able to find one. But if you're hunting for something unique, interesting, and beautiful, this may well be an excellent thing for you to put on your I'm hunting for it radar. Let's do some size comparisons. Here it is against the PM2. And as you can see, they are very similar in overall size, if wildly different in shape. And here it is against the PM3. So you can see it is considerably larger than the PM3. Yeah, this is a very nice sandwich right here. And for a more common, and yet this one's sort of uncommon, traditional small knife that's very popular right now, here it is against the Bug Out, if that helps you at all. I love interesting designs in knives. Now, don't get me wrong. A good all-purpose pocket knife that will not let you down, like the PM2 here, is an excellent choice. But I don't collect knives just for that, right? I collect knives because they appeal to me in their aesthetic and their interest. This just does. So what do you get? Well, as I mentioned, you get a really interesting tanto, hollow ground tanto, very aggressive tanto. That is 1, 2, 3 inches of cutting on 1, 2, 3.5 inches of M390. The grip area from behind the choil is 1, 2, 3, 4 full inches, and of course, if we add the choil, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a little bit. I mean, there is all the handle in the world on this knife, and it is very, very well done. Now, I mentioned that it's thin. Well, let's get the actual overall length before we move on. All right. The knife itself is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.25 inches long overall. Look how thin that handle is. That's a well-sorted knife for sure. Let's go ahead and break out the calipers so we can get some measurements done that way. All right. The blade stock starts at 3.2 millimeters. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm having a lot of lighting problems lately. Anyway, 3.2 millimeters. And the handle at its thickest, which is not very thick, is 10.2 millimeters, which is 0.4, yeah, 0.4 inches. So this is a very thin, very light, very slicey pocket knife, and I am, well, I'm sort of in love with it. I bet you can tell. Let's go ahead and get the scale out here. I keep talking about how light it is. Let's see. We are zeroed out. Just at 4 ounces. Now, for a full-size, all-titanium knife, that is very light. By way of example, the Para 2 is 3.9 ounces, right? So these are very, very competitive, both in size and in weight, and in cutting, actually, which is really interesting. Go ahead and move that out of the way. The Para 2 here is a real slicer. This is the Sprint in S45VN, and as you can see, the blade is filthy because I use it all the time. This really high flat grind allows for very nice cutting, but you can tell it's still sort of thick behind the edge. The Wasp? Nope. Man, that is a razor blade down here. Vlad over at VDK is a very nice guy. He is fun to talk to and interested in talking to people who are interested in his knives, of course. But he has been exceptionally generous with his time when it comes to me, I think. And that is one of the reasons that I have leaned into his knives as hard as I have. It matters, right? If I'm going to buy, you know, Spyderco's, I don't really care that much about the company. As long as their customer service is good, it doesn't matter to me. But if you're going to get into knives by small makers, how they present themselves to the world, oops, bumped the mat, you know, how they are when you have questions for them does actually matter in the end. And Vlad has been exceptionally communicative and interested in my questions, and for that I am very, very grateful. Once again, I'm not going to suggest that you go out and buy one of these because I don't think you can. However, it looks very much like there may be a second run of this and a second run of his some of his other knives. That would make me very happy. I hope that he does. In the meantime, I'm very glad to have this in the collection. Not much of a review today. I have used this thing quite a bit since I got it. One of the nice things about buying knives on the secondary market, I'm not sure it's going to show up in the video there, but there's some scuffing back here on the pocket, on the backspacer, which means that I get to carry this and use this without worrying about being the first person to mark it up. It's a little like buying a used car. You know, you want it to run well and do everything it's supposed to, and this does, but you also know that you're not going to be the first person to put a door ding on it. That makes you feel better. Buying used knives is a lot like that. They come with a little bit of love and a little bit of wear on them, and that means that when you are ready to carry it and pocket it, you're not afraid of, you know, scuffing it up or damaging it, particularly with higher-end knives. The pocket clip, before we go, this is one of those exceptionally simple and yet very, very well sorted pocket clips. It has plenty of great ramp. It has lots of room in the pocket. It is deep carry in the sense that that is all the knife you've got sticking out, and that is not much. When you mix that with how incredibly thin this knife is in the pocket, I mean, it is thinner by far than the PM2 and the PM3. It is, in fact, on par in width with the Benchmade Bug Out, and this is a well-known and very thin knife. So this pocket clip, built so well that it hides most of the knife, mixed with that incredibly thin profile, means that this knife it is an exceptionally good carry. And we're going to go ahead and end it there. This is the VDK Wasp. It is the 5th in my VDK collection. If you guys have any questions about the Wasp here or any of the VDK knives that you've seen on my channel, please feel free, ask down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.